I know that you grew up in Chicago. Can you tell me what does Viagra Triangle mean? Like what?
I don't know. I
What?
actually don't know what that is.
It's a threesome of old people? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
It's
not I'm not sure.
I was just like looking up stuff about Chicago, and apparently this is what popped up, and this is what Chicago people know.
Literally, that's what popped up when you're talking about Viagra. Um, I actually, so people from Chicago will say, Leanne, you didn't grow up in Chicago. I grew up 45 minutes outside of Chicago. But when I say where I grew up, then people are like, oh, Chicago area. So it depends on who you ask. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So you're
yeah.
just like you're trying to sneak into the Chicago lifestyle.
No, I just, it's like a point of reference, I suppose, because if I say Waukegan, unless people really know anything like about Ray Bradbury or Jack Benny, they probably have never heard of Waukegan, or unless they were in the Navy, because there's a Navy base there. Then it's like, why would you hear of Waukegan? But then if you say, outside of Chicago, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what stood out living in Waukegan?
What's
What
it
was it?
like?
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, that's all I ever knew for the first 20 years of my life. So I didn't have a problem with it. And then I left and I was like, oh, this is what the rest of the world is like. And I never looked back. So,
Once you leave
yeah.
your hometown, me and Said were Lebanese, so we grew up in Lebanon, and then we branched ways. I went to the United States. He went to the United Kingdom, and now we're united on this podcast.
Hey.
Yay, technology.
Yes.
Goodness. Leanne, thank you so much for joining. Leanne, you're a comedian, and you also created this cool technology called Plauzzable, and it's for stand-up comics to showcase themselves online and do
Yeah.
cool, fun shows. I was trying to tell Said to sign up, but he's gonna put his information. Said is finally trying to do open mics. He didn't want a cool open mic, and
Yeah.
so all you gotta do, you gotta go plausible.com right here. You scroll through. What do we got here? Leanne Linsky, casual open mic. Register.
Mhm.
We'll see you there. That's all
Awesome.
it takes.
Yeah, that's it. I love it. You get it. You get it.
That's just how it is.
Yep.
Leanne, you've lived everywhere. You've lived in Chicago, New York, Vegas, LA. What's better, any of those places or online for comedy?
Okay. So I love New York. Okay, for comedy right now, online, Plauzzable. Okay, I'll be that person. Oh wait, shameless plug. No. Okay, so I love New York. Oh my gosh, there's an energy and a vibe about New York that I just never experienced anywhere else, and also the food. Like I cannot go. You can't go wrong anywhere.
So true.
Yeah, I loved the weather in LA. I made some good friends in LA, but the traffic in LA, forget about it.
Nah.
I
Forget
mean,
about it.
I forget about it. I lost years of my life sitting in traffic. It was just dumb, like it's like it takes me it would take 30 minutes to go 2 miles some places, and that's just surface streets. It's not even the highway. And now I'm in Seattle, which is okay. So people are like, "Oh, Seattle, it rains all the time." The truth is, it doesn't rain all the time. It rains enough for us to justify saying it rains all the time, and also so that hey, don't move here because it's beautiful, and I don't want prices to go up even more. So that's kind of what it has a reputation. But it's actually quite beautiful here, and I love it because you have elements of the city, but also the
Yeah.
outdoors. It's just pretty magnificent. I had never been here until I moved here, and I was like, "Oh, what? Ha, didn't know this existed. This is another planet." Trees. What is this? I don't.
Not something you see much in New York.
No, and in LA, it was like palm trees, and I don't know. I guess nothing changed colors for seasons or anything in LA,
Yeah.
and it is just a different vibe. And yeah, like you don't get like here you turn every corner and you're like, ooh, ah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old and I appreciate that more. Maybe, probably. Mhm.
It's like
That
different
That's my
sounds
species
good.
of
excitement.
trees. Yes, we got to see the different, all the types of trees. We travel
Yeah.
to see what nature, the way nature changes and just looks different. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Why were you in Vegas?
Well, I went to college in Vegas. I went to University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Gotcha.
So,
Woo!
right?
Is
Like,
it as fun as it sounds?
sure, mom and dad, college, Las Vegas. Yeah, I highly recommend, honestly. I went to community college for my first 2 years. Did
Mhm.
that in Illinois, and then my parents were like, "Oh, you're actually doing well. Like, do you wanna go somewhere else?" And everywhere is really expensive, I didn't come from a family of people who went to college, um, so it was new to us, and we did a lot of research. My brother happened to be in the military, and he was stationed in Las Vegas at the time. He goes, "I think there's a school here." So this is before the internet. So he had to drive to the school and pick up a catalog and then put it in the mail and send it to me. And I was like, "Oh, look, we can afford this. And also it's an accredited school. It's got a good business school." Yeah, and I went there. Mhm.
Wow.
So, what did you do for your undergrad then?
I did business management. Yeah.
Business.
And
Okay.
yeah, and then I ended up working for a home builder right out of college. I got a job with a home builder doing like accounts payable. And then I got a year later, I moved over to work for another home builder, like a Fortune 500 company. And I started out in their accounting department and then worked my way up through accounting and market research. And then I worked out in the field doing uh, back end superintendent in construction, and
Hmm.
then became area manager and oversaw home warranty and all that
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. It sounds like you
Yeah.
didn't really enjoy the corporate life.
Oh, I loved it actually. Customer service is a whole nother thing, right? That's all like
Okay.
people with their homes. It's like there's this drywall has a unusual texture. Okay, it's just your brain explodes. It's like it's a house. But it was a wonderful company to work for. I'm still friends with all of those people, and I left there in 2006. And I had been there for
Wow.
almost 13 years. Yeah, it was fun. If I hadn't been laid off, I'd probably still be there. Yeah, I really loved what I was doing. I love the people. So no matter what position I had, it
Hmm.
just kept it interesting. Yeah.
So, and as working as in bookkeeping, did it did the skills that you learned from it integrate into you becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. Because I have to know my numbers. I have to put budgets together
Mhm.
and forecast, and you have to be able to add some try do all of those things and know like where your money's going at any given time. It's super important. Yeah.
Leanne, can I pause you for a second? Because I've always wanted to know, how do they price comedians at a comedy club? Like, how come some comedians they're like $30, some comedians are $15 to go see? How do they do all that pricing? Finally, I have someone who can answer this for us.
Yeah. So, well, it depends on the club. It
Hmm.
probably has to do with the night, So, like, I used to be an office manager at a improv theater in New York,
Hmm.
and it depends on the show, the night, the time, but most theaters, to be honest with you, like improv theaters, they don't pay the performers. And I don't know what that was in my headset, but that it's the voices in my head. I'm so sorry. Uh, can you hear the committee? Like, stop it. Okay, so but they don't, a lot of like improv theaters, they don't typically pay the performers. Those What happens is those performers have to take classes there in order to get stage
Mm,
time or pay for the stage and rent out the theater and basically self-produce. And then in stand up, features and headlining spots will
mhm,
get paid typically, and it's usually at a flat rate unless you're a big enough name that you can ask for a split of the door. But
mm,
typically you're not getting paid if you're just doing guest spots, like 5-minute spots or 10-minute spots. You're Most comedians aren't getting paid, or maybe they're getting a couple bucks for gas money, or they're here's a free burger and a beer type thing. But
mhm.
and then oftentimes in some clubs in New York, you'd have to stand outside and bark, where you're like, hey, do you like comedy, in Times Square? And then you get people to buy tickets. And then for every ticket you sell, you get 1 minute on the stage.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's like all these different things. And then like there are some clubs where you have to take classes and patronize their club every night and go to all their open mics for a long period of time. And then as they get to know you and trust you, they'll allow you to host a mic and not pay you. But that's a privilege to host a mic and then work your way up into like a paid spot or into the room where people actually, pay for tickets and stuff like that. So contrary to popular belief, most people aren't making any money off of their comedy.
Oh, wow. So, and you mentioned like gaining their trust. What exactly do they have to do to gain the trust of the producers?
Depends on the producer, I suppose. Yeah,
no white
that's a
scenes.
great. Yeah, and scene. I don't know what that is. I'm apparently not trustworthy because I haven't been passed at a club. Like I've done shows at different clubs and things. I try to stay away from a lot of comedians. There's some who love these, some who hate these. Depends on who you ask. There's bringer shows. And if you get booked in a bringer show, it means you have to bring X number of people in order to get X minutes of stage time. And if you show up and those people don't show up to see you because they will check at the door, then you don't get a spot. So there's a lot of shows like that at different clubs. It just really depends. And it depends on who the booker is, There's money to be had if you're doing corporate shows, which means typically for corporate shows, you have to do clean comedy. And that doesn't mean like you're just not swearing. It means it has to be HR friendly. So good luck,
Good luck, yeah.
I mean, that's a skill set. There are people who do it and they do it very well. A lot of people think they can do it. And then you see they're real and you're like, I wouldn't submit that for a corporate show because unless it's actually a real that is clean comedy and corporate friendly, if it's not representative of what the company's looking for, they're not going to hire because they don't have any proof that you can do it. But there's money to be had there. But that's like one of the reasons I created Plauzzable because you don't have to have a comedian doesn't have to have a minimum number of followers. And a lot of clubs, I hear this from people now is I can't get booked in a club because I have to have X number of followers on my TikTok. I've been doing comedy for 30 years. I don't have, or not me, but like people have been doing comedy for decades and they don't have a TikTok and therefore they can't get booked now. It's not necessarily because the clubs are like, well, if you have a following and you can convert your following into ticket sales, then we're going to put you on stage. It's who's going to keep us in business kind of thing. So on Plauzzable, I don't care how many followers you have or don't have. Get on there. Here's all the tools. Put on a show. You set your own ticket price. You get the majority of the ticket revenue.
But it's not always true with the TikTok followers because I remember there was the very famous like one of the most popular TikTokers in the world. I forgot what her name is, but when she was cast for a movie, they cast her mainly because she had the most amount of followers on TikTok, and they thought that would generate a lot of tickets for in cinemas, and it didn't end up working out. So it doesn't necessarily kind of apply there. So in what how are they thinking that this would happen the same way in comedy shows?
I don't know why they're doing it that way. I don't think of it that way because honestly, I don't see a lot of people converting their social media into revenue. I mean, it doesn't happen. Yes. Is it possible? Yes. But I think those are small percentages to be honest. I don't know that a lot of people are really translating that stuff into, that social media into it. Like, in recent conversations, someone's like, I'm posting this many times a day. And I'm like, well, how is that working for you? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, then why are you still doing it? Like, stop doing that. And the other thing that I don't like, I scroll, I follow tons of comedians and I see them posting all of their jokes and everything. I'm like, well, I just saw your set. So why would I come see you now? I just saw everything.
That's true.
And a lot of comedians are are weary, you know, because so many people are posting crowd work and different things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a lot of material in order to be posting everything, because otherwise why, or constantly writing, because otherwise why is someone going to come and see you if I just saw all of those same jokes on Instagram,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Like
Yeah,
you do want to, you kind of want to make a balance between how much content you're actually showing on social media.
right.
And I feel
Yeah,
like
and so,
I was just gonna say, I think Matt Rife, now he's one of the
mhm.
he's one of the trending comedians, right? And I think he really did it well with becoming popular on social media and then converting that engagement he had on social media to selling out shows and now having his own specials on Netflix. That worked out for him. So,
Yeah,
what's your opinion on that?
I mean, yay, good for him. He did it well. Like, I, you know, if I could do that, I would do that, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
so that's just a, I think that's a great example though. It's possible, but I look and I see how many people out there are trying to do the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not working for them. So it's a small percent that actually, um that actually works. And I look at it like this. I think there's many those poor cats. Sorry, cat lovers, but there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I mean, ask any psychopath, right? There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and and I think there's more than one path to success, and especially
Mm-hmm.
in comedy. So, but if you're doing something over and over and over again and hoping for something different to happen, that's just a waste of time or insanity, maybe both, right? So what about trying something different? What if you can, not have so many hurdles to clear and start bringing in money to fund some of those other avenues for yourself? Do that. That's, again, that's why I created the platform I did. I'm like, how can I democratize this? How can I level the playing field so that people who aren't even living in major cities can do this? And I think, like what you said Matt did, I think that's great. If more people can make that happen, I am right there cheering you on. I mean, do you find, but that's the other thing. He did it different than what a lot of people were doing before. It's like,
For
oh,
sure.
you have to do it this way.
yeah,
And he's like, oh, look, no one's doing this. I can make this lane to myself. And he did. Now everybody's trying to copy him. So, you know, it's kind of like, do you want to find the avenue where you can be a leader in it? Or do you want to now the everybody's over here trying to do the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
that's true.
Yeah.
Um, Leanne, thank you so much for breaking this down. This is actually super interesting to me because I've always wanted to know all the behind the scenes work of how it's like to run a comedy club. I mean, I'm curious as to, I see on your platform, Plauzzable, it's broken down a bit into genres, like comedy genres, like if you're into clean comedy versus if you're into self deprecating comedy or dark comedy or, you know,
Yeah.
wordplay, etc. So, how did you come to break those things down? And you don't usually see those things in traditional comedy clubs, right? Like if I'm going to a comedy club, they're not saying, "Oh, this is dark."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
night,
Well, such a great question. So one of the things when I was creating this, I'm like, what are some of the what are some of the things that we see currently
Mm-hmm.
on social media? If I put in comedy or hashtag comedy and I want to see anybody who comes up to, I don't know what I'm going to get. I might get a 12-year-old who's like pushing a sister down the stairs and they think that's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like, but you don't know. Like anybody can hashtag anything, whatever they want on social, whether they're a comedian or not. Same with YouTube. I can type in the search, but whatever they named it is what I get. So if I were creating a directory for comedians and I was coming in and let's say I'm a booker, maybe I'm looking for people who have good ratings on Plauzzable, and I want some people who kind of fit in this kind of event that I'm booking for. I can search by those things. So if I know people are good with relationship humor and self-deprecating and stuff, and I'm, you know, putting on a private event for, I don't know, divorcees, perfect, I'm hiring this person, they get me, you know. Or if
Right.
I'm doing something else and I'm looking for someone who's really good with political satire and wordplay and, you know, this or that, then I can book for that. Now the question is, are the comedians filling that out accurately? we still have yet to see. I mean, I have hundreds of comedians on the site, but ideally, as the site grows and the algorithms get smarter with the searches, then that'll suss itself out. And the same, we want to add to the show, because if let's say I do a lot of self-deprecating and relationship humor, but I might book someone who does humor about religion or whatever on my show. So it might still incorporate that. So adding that information to the actual shows will be helpful in the future too.
Gotcha. And do you give, when comedians have comedian and friends, do they kind of agree on a certain vibe or topic, or is it really, or do they pick the comedians because they know that they fit into their mold?
They pick the comedians. Well, this depends on who's booking the show. Some people book comedians that they know have tight sets that get laughs, that can do a solid X number of minutes, that kind of thing. Some people will book because they've worked with the people before and they know they're good, they're reliable, they're good on camera, blah, blah, blah. And then some people book because they're like, who haven't I booked before? I booked 100 shows. I need someone new, so it can depend. Honestly, it can just depend on the day of why someone gets booked. But typically people aren't going to get rebooked if there are no shows, if they're late, if they're, stinking up the stage.
They get blacklisted. Is there a list? The blacklist.
Probably. Yeah. I don't know that's what we call it anymore, but yes.
Yeah. So, and are all the bookings mainly online, or do you also do bookings for live shows and external private events?
I used to, do stuff in person and for private events and things, for sure. And I'm still open to that. Me personally, now I do everything on Plauzzable because I'm tethered to my desk and my butt is shaped like an IKEA chair. This is where I spend all of my time. And I'm just, I love what I do. I believe in the platform and I want to I attend as many of the mics and shows as I can right now, and I want to support the comedians that are on there and make sure that that things are working for them, they're having a good experience, and that kind of stuff as we continue to build out and grow. So that's kind of where I spend all my time.
Yeah. It feels like it's a very large and growing networking field through Plauzzable, because people can be, obviously, like you're saying, they can be discovered by people and then be booked for external events, and they can discover what kind of comedians they want to work with. And I don't know if this is how you set out Plauzzable as this kind of platform. This is what you want it to be, some sort of networking platform, or some way for other comedians to get jobs, or was it just a platform for comedians to perform on?
Yes. It was all of those things.
Nice one, Saeed.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah. It's all of those things. I initially did it because it planted a seed for me when I moved from New York to LA, and I suddenly found myself really missing my comedians on the East Coast. They are mine. I own all of them. That's my comedian. No, but I was really missing them. I had run a mic in New York for over 7.5 years, and had a bunch of regulars and people that became friends. And I felt that in New York, it was a very supportive community, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was getting booked on shows. I was booking people on I also produced a weekly stand-up show, and I loved it. I got to meet a lot of people and see a lot of great talent. And then I moved to LA, and I started booking a couple shows, but I was driving for an hour and a half for 5 minutes. I'm like, what? I can't read a book and drive at the same time. I could, but that is very dangerous. I do not recommend. But
No.
on the subway, I could multitask. I could be writing. I could be doing something. But now all of a sudden, all my time is being sucked by traffic and then gas. I'm like, how do I bridge a gap? I don't believe, and nor do I want to replace in person a comedy, because that's magical. That I get it. So when people are like online, where I'm like, yeah, but you're not on stage all the time. And what if you could bridge a gap and grow your network in between?
Mm-hmm.
And also while you're traveling, like, and if you're gonna go perform out of state or out of the country, like, wouldn't it be great to have a network of people that you could reach out to and know, and when you come here, I can get you booked here or put you in touch with people and vice versa, and grow that community. Also grow your fan base. And if you're on social media doing all this content creation and everything, you've got people from all over the world, possibly following you. So why not be able to have a place for them to see you too, not just only if they show up in New York one day, because
Yeah.
that's not always the case. Um, so it was a opportunity. So when I started this, it was to solve my own problem of how do I see my comedians from the East Coast? How can I do more, work out more jokes in between in person? And then I was like, this is in August of 2019 BC, before COVID. And I was doing this with some other comedians, and I'm like, wow, this is great. When I work out my jokes on here, I know they're going to work on stage. And then some comedians were like, why would I do that? Well, then COVID happened, and now everybody's using Zoom. Everybody's using these existing technologies, which were great. And I will not knock them because they got us through a pandemic, which was really rough. But as a comedian and a performer online, we have certain needs. Like, I can't deal with the audio delays and cutouts and the way the screen is laid out and certain things. Like, I need immediate feedback. And I think for me, that's the other challenge with social media. I can put stuff up, but now I'm getting likes and I'm throwing all my material out there. I'm not even basking in any of the glory of some laughter, let
Wow.
alone did people actually watch it? I don't know. Maybe not. My mom's like, oh, love it. But online, at least I can get some immediate response. And I know that during COVID, some people's views on it got kind of tainted because they didn't have a good experience. But it's like, but if you had something that was built for comedy, could that be a game changer for you? And also, if you could earn money and not rely on tips, and the generosity of someone feeling bad for you, you know, what if you put value on what you're doing and just charge for it? And you could still do all the in-person stuff you want, but what if you could have a bigger outreach and put on good shows? So that's the long version of my answer.
No, that's amazing, Leanna, because like you're really supporting comedians in finding a way to like put a value to their work. It's like, when artists struggle to make money out of their paintings or their creations, comedians are in the same sense. They're in the same place because they're also creatives, and they have their own art form that they don't always know how to value it. So I feel like Plausible is kind of giving them that space and that platform where they can gauge the value of their material.
Yeah.
It's
And I'm
making it
so
plausible for them.
right. Yes. It's so true. And I'm so glad you brought up, like, as an artist, my mom was an artist. She did portraits,
Yeah.
and she is incredibly talented. She would do these paintings of people, and then so oftentimes she would do people who passed away, like their family would lose a child, and they're like, I want a portrait of my child or whatever. And it's a very sad time, so she was like, well, I don't want to charge them, like, they just lost their kid, and she'd like sell this painting that she'd literally spend months on. It looks like a photograph by the time she was done. It was so real. And then she'd be like, $75. I'm like, you just like made maybe a quarter an hour, or something for all the
Yeah.
time that you spent on it. But she would never put that. She's like, well, it's not that good, or the eye was a little, or whatever. But she'd always find a reason not to value her work. And growing up and seeing that bothered me. I saw how much time she put into it, how much effort she put into it. But the
Yeah.
same thing goes for all these comedians who are going to open mics every night, which they're paying $5 for 5 minutes on stage at a mic sometimes, or they run around to 4 different stages and do shows, these mics for free just to work out jokes, and then go do a show and may or may not get paid. And I see them doing the same thing. And yet now, even now, it's like, hey, you can do all of that and ask people up front, like, pay $5 to come see me. Even if you get 10 people, $5, that's $50. And of course, Plauzzable makes some money off of it, but you make the majority of the money off of it. Why wouldn't you do that? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we help put the word out for you, you know?
Yeah, of
So, and
course.
so, so yeah, I mean, if you were to go put on your own show in a venue, a lot of clubs will be like, yo, if you want to self produce, you give me $100 for the room up front and we take all of the bar, but then it's up to you to sell all your tickets. They're not going to help you sell any tickets.
Yeah. And as a bookkeeper, you're just like raking in the commissions. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you can see you're like, oh, I have a lot of time off. There is nothing happening here, you know? So, but yeah, that's kind of how it is. And, you know, theaters, a lot of theaters, they make their money because they give classes. They make money off the bar and classes. They're not making money off their shows.
Yeah, that's true.
Man, and this is a good opportunity for people. You know, comedy is really challenging because it's late at night most of the time. It's in like a bar setting, which has its own challenges for most people, versus what you're trying to do opens the doors up for people with special needs, let's say, people in a wheelchair who can physically go on stage. You know, more women. You know, um, I see how diverse your platform is, and I do see how challenging it is for women in general to get into stand-up comedy because there's a lot of things stacked up against them. But this kind of opportunity makes it more accessible for everyone. And yeah, I think people are going to still love live stand-up, but I think there's going to be a good amount of people who want the stand-up but don't want don't want all the chaos that comes with it. Me personally, I do love the chaos of going into a club and some madness happening, you know, and you don't know what to expect. Someone's drunk and heckling, you know. But
Ali
someone
got
might
asked
not
to
want that.
Ali got asked to say the N word by a comedian the other
Yes, by an
day.
African American comedian. Yeah, exactly. See, someone might not want that experience. I said no. Trust me, I said no, thank you.
I don't want to get canceled before I become someone.
Right, exactly.
I was just watching a movie about this too, and I forgot the name of the movie. And the guy lost his job. It was bananas. But yeah, it's true. So there's this whole aspect of like, you know, going to a club or a mic or something. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, running my mic for years, I there were some wild stories about things that kind of happen, and it's fun, and but there's also crazy things that happen online. Heck, I went to heck, I went back to school. I went and got my master's degree during COVID, and I did classes online. And just being in gallery view, I saw way more than of my cohort than I ever want to see. I'm like, you realize your camera is on, right? So yeah, I think, and you're right. The platform is very diverse, and I'm excited to see so many female producers on Plauzzable. A lot of female comedians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of female comedians, I just every time I look at my feed and I see like female comedians, especially the popular ones, they're always talking about like similar topics, which is always revolving around their around sex. Is it like why? Why is that like the most famous topic for them to talk about?
That's a great question. That actually comes up, and I am probably not the best person to answer it. I'm not like I'm old. I'm like, oh my gosh, like because I don't necessarily talk about it. I'll do innuendo. I'll do stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I feel weird talking about, and maybe I don't know. People will be like, "Oh, she's a prude" or whatever. I'm like, I don't know if that's what it is. I just don't need to tell you what I'm doing.
Yes, exactly.
But
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
that's a great question. It seems to be very popular. I think that started happening a few years back, and people saw. I think this goes again. Someone sees someone having success with that, and then other
Okay.
people hop on that train, and then they're like, "I'm going to do that too." I also think, and this is just my opinion, but that's kind of what I see is like if some person has success with one thing, all of a sudden other people start doing it. And I think that copying or imitating someone is like one of the finest forms of flattery that's out there. But that's the same with seeing somebody get successful on YouTube or something, and then everybody's like, oh, I'm going to be a YouTube, whatever. Same with podcasts, right? So there is that element. No, I mean, like, we're on a podcast. Let me take my foot. Where is it? Shove it in my mouth.
No, it's true.
I did a podcast before. No one listens to my podcast though. So yeah, I don't really know what that's about, but apparently they're doing, some have some really good followings on it, but there's also a lot of female comedians who are now on OnlyFans.
Oh.
And that's a thing.
Whoa.
I didn't know that. Actually.
I didn't know that either.
I'm not on there.
I am not on OnlyFans either. I'm not going to knock them for going on there. I mean, whatever floats your boat. If it's working for you, it's working for you.
It's paying the bills.
It's just not. Yeah, it's not. No one wants to see this on OnlyFans. You're welcome. Like Leanne Linsky logs into OnlyFans, and the next day they're out of business. So, like, what happened? Oh, Leanne was here. So, yeah, no one wants to see this on. Like, I have nothing to sell. But some people are doing really well with it on there, and good for them. But this goes back to why you said there's categories on Plauzzable, why people can pick that, because some people may not want to see politics and religion and humor. They're like, I see enough of that on news. I'm going to get some of this, and you can kind of differentiate it, because there are some people who straight out tell me, like, I don't like any of this kind of comedy. And I'm like, really? Like, I can't, in my mind, when I was doing all the research, I'm like, well, comedy, of course. If you don't like it, just change, if like a song comes on, you're like, oh, the dial, you just change it.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do that? But some people don't see it that way. So I'm like, oh, maybe these little parsing out of categories would be helpful to people, because people go by genre for music. Why wouldn't you do that with comedy?
For sure. Anyone who says I don't like comedy is like, you don't like music? Yes.
Yes. Okay. I love that you just said that, because someone was saying something to me, like a comedy platform or something. And I'm like, yeah, you don't like, and they're like, well, I honestly don't like comedy. I'm like, do you like music? And they're like, well, not really. I'm like, stepping away.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like music.
I'm not leaving. Like, do you like pets and small puppies? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay, walking away even faster from you.
Those kind of people, just ask them, like, do you even like life? Or
do you like air? Do you like water?
Yeah. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry for you.
If you ask them, what do you hate? They'll probably have a very long list. That would be a better question.
Puppies, comedy, music. Oh goodness, I hate all that. Jeez.
Yeah. Man, yeah. So,
I can't stand people like that, and I understand. I think people maybe don't have enough education on comedy, and that they don't know what's out there, and maybe they know very little, they don't like, but everyone has some kind of comedy, whether it's a comedy show, or a comedy, I don't know, comedian specific style that they like, who doesn't love to laugh?
Of course. Yeah. Laughter is laughter is just part of happiness, man. Like, they probably just haven't met the right comedian. That's the thing. And Plauzzable offers that, though. Plauzzable offers the right comedian for you. You just have to find just have to look through the categories and you'll and test it out. And then, yes, another plug for Plauzzable. Why not?
You are hired.
I've been told I'm a good salesman, so let's go.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And the other thing is, like, when you go to a club, when you leave the club, you can leave a review on Yelp for the club and say whatever you want about the club. But you rarely get to review the comedians. And on Plauzzable, at the end of each performance, because all the performances are live in real time, and then you get asked, like, leave your feedback, and you can leave a star rating and be like, oh, I really liked your jokes on XYZ, or I'd like to see more of this, and you can leave it, and then they get all that feedback from people, which I think is really cool and helpful. Of course, it can hurt your heart if people are like, you suck, but we don't have people like that on the platform as of yet. So no, it's been very positive and constructive, and I find very helpful because it informs me of, like, if I'm doing a show, or Mike, what do people want to see more of? What do they want to see less of?
So wait,
Wow.
when you mean like reviews and ratings, is it like an Uber rating where like you get
Yeah,
everyone's aiming for the 5-star review.
It's true because your comedian profile pages are public, like your LinkedIn pages, and then you get to see people's reviews. It's like, oh, do I want to go see their show? Here's what people are saying. But in our future phases, fans will be able to review. Like, were you a heckler? 1 star, we're gonna add that in the coming phases of development, so that people can review back. Because if you're a great audience member and you're laughing out loud, like, oh my gosh, I love that, I'd love to give you 5 stars for laughing and being actively listening at a comedy show. That's like my dream client.
That's amazing. That's like it, because like then you can also really make it a very, like, a great space for the comedians and for the fans, knowing what they're entering, what kind of level the comedian they're entering. And this also goes back to the engagement of value for the comedian, like based on the reviews he's getting and his content, they can really value themselves better. And then obviously the ratings will change over time as their material gets better.
Exactly. Again, so you're working for Plauzzable now.
Saeed, are you ready for a sales call?
Of course, man.
Ring,
sales
ring.
call.
Hey.
Hello? Plauzzable here. Hello.
Oh, hello. Who is this?
This is Saeed from Plauzzable. How can I help you?
Oh, you called me.
See, don't worry, this is all part of the call, sir. Well, Ali, is that correct?
That's my name.
I have your information.
Okay.
Okay, Ali, I wanted to ask you, do you like comedy, sir?
I think so. I like Mr. Bean.
You like Mr. Bean? Well, perfect. We have Mr. Bean on our show, and if you can't afford Mr. Bean, we have alternatives that are cheaper as well. We have so many options of Mr. Bean on Plauzzable.
I like options.
Options are very good, sir. Options help us make us more choices and just allow us to experiment with life. It's entertaining that way. That's what comedy is.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Wait a minute. My phone is ringing over here. My phone is ringing. Hello? Oh, wait. It's Mr. Bean's attorney calling me. That we're representing him on Plauzzable.
Oh, no. We're getting sued.
I'm transferring you over to Saeed. He just started for me. Hang on.
Saeed, you gotta sell, man. It's all about the sale. When you're on a sales call, you gotta sell.
Ali,
you can't leave them hanging too long.
That's true. I should not give you a second to think, should I? It's like we have all the options. We have Mr. Bean. If you don't like Mr. Bean, it's fine, man. We can give you so many different other options. We have self-deprecating humor. We have female comedians. We have the ones that talk about genitalia. We have the ones that talk about self-deprecating humor. We have the ones that talk about divorce. We have the ones that talk about unicorns. Because why not? We can have all of this available to us by a click of a button, and you can choose any of these options that you want, man. It just depends on how much you're willing to pay, how much your budget is telling you you can afford. And we also have all the reviews there. You can check, you know how when you choose your Uber by looking at his rating and be like, this guy's Uber rating is too low. I don't want to ride with him. You can do that with the comedian himself. You can just
Can I do that to you?
You can do that with me, of course. If I'm being a bad salesman, you can give me a 1-star review, man. Just tell me to,
2
and tell me
stars.
to fuck off.
One for
Exactly.
effort. Yeah, exactly.
1 star, 2 stars is enough for me, sir. Like, I don't mind if you like. I'm not the one that should be, in the end paid. It should be the comedians and not me.
Sounds good. We can edit that down a little bit, just from, hey, do you want to sign up? Yeah, I want to sign up. Thank you so much. Well, that's pretty good. Thank you so much, Leanne. What do you think, Said, of all this?
I'm just gonna go look for some new comedians on Plauzzable tonight.
That sounds good.
Can't
wait. Sign up. Check it out.
I think I'm gonna. Oh, is that you signing up? Look at say you just signed up. I just got alert.
I got an alert.
All right. Thank you, Leanne, for so much for your time. Ali, you know how we sign out. Everyone, thank you for watching. Salute to the camera and peace.
And peace. Woo.